Today, we're talking about what you're going to experience in the graduate programs. This episode is going to be writers' workshops. This is a lot of your classwork. So I'm going to go over first, before I describe the writers' workshops, I'm going to describe some of these differences between these programs. So a master's is 30 to 40 hours, and you're going to be concentrating on only coursework. So the MFA is the terminal degree, and that's why this is mainly about MFA programs, which I went through. So I'm telling you what it's like. They're very similar to the PhD program, except the PhD is a little more comprehensive. So basically an MFA is 60 hours and a PhD is 60 hours. A PhD can require more hours if you don't get an MA first. Most people get a master's, then a PhD. So then the PhD hours and the MFA hours are roughly equivalent. Big difference is going to be MFA and PhD require writing books, simply. You're just going to write a book, and that's going to suck. So go read my book. It's wonderful. So let's talk about these workshops. When I took undergraduate classes in creative writing, I elected to take writers' workshops. During post-bac, you're actually taking graduate level classes, but you're not technically in the program. Those workshops are going to be the same. Obviously, I was in there with people in the creative writing program, in the MFA program, but I wasn't currently in it. Matter of fact, I had to go to another school to get in because I was so terrible. So let's talk about the writing workshops themselves, because they're all going to be the same. Whatever level, they may be more intensive at the upper level, and you're definitely going to have a different grade system at the upper level. You're only going to get A's or B's, or you're going to get kicked out and asked to drop. But in 4-year, you can have A, B, C, D. So writers' workshops are normally 8 to 12 people. If it's a lot less than that or a lot more than that, I would question whether you're in a good writing workshop. And the reason for that is you need a number of people to critique. So less than 6 is getting a little close. And then you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, so over 12 would be really unmanageable. I think we always had 12. This is what to expect at any level when you get into the actual workshop, which should be about half of your coursework. For MFA, it's 60 hours. So you're going to have 30 hours of elective. A lot of them will be more like literary classes, literature classes, things you would take in an MA program. The other 30 will be actual workshops. And so you're going to be sitting in those workshops with 11 other people, and what you're doing is basically shopping your work. The teacher is going to be requiring 2 people to submit for the upcoming week, and then next 2, and then the next 2. And then that's normally how it works. You'll take those stories home. You'll take basically 2 stories home, say on Monday, and then the following Monday, probably, you'll workshop those particular 2 stories, and they'll stagger them so everyone's stories get done 2 to 3 times throughout the semester. So that's simply how it works. I'd like to tell you also what to look for. First of all, not too many, not too little people in the class. But the other thing is I found the classes that were the best had the most structure. Now, I don't always like structure. As you know, I taught philosophy for 30 years and I was completely unstructured. I actually like it that way. But in fiction classes and in art in general, there's a lack of structure inherently in the subject matter, which means for a lot of reasons. One of them is that people assume that there's no structure, that everything's subjective, and there's no qualities that are absolute or objectively defined within the system. They can make up their own ideas for what literary tech. No, that's not what to look for. This is why you want the structure. The best class I had 2 workshops with a guy who was a really well-known workshop leader and short story writer. He was like boot camp. So what he did was he was really hard on the stories. He encouraged the other people to be really hard. He didn't care if you led with something positive. He ended each workshop with his own critique of the 2 stories that were read, and he was really harsh. Also, at the end of the semester, this is for the whole class, he would give an overall evaluation of your performance for writing your 2 or 3 stories, taking the critiques, doing rewrites, and also how you critiqued other people's stories, what that showed about your own knowledge of literary technique, but also your growth throughout that semester. And he would give you a harsh critique, not just your story. So at the end of the semester, he'd go through each of the 12 people. So this is a really hard thing to do online. I know everyone wants to do online. Workshops are much better in person. They're much better with a good-sized group, say 10 to 12 people. But they're best with real discipline, with a actual leader. So as a philosophy teacher, I can tell you I spent a lot of time training and learning how to teach anything, because philosophy is a fundamental subject. Part of that fundamental nature is understanding how things work in a general sense, not in a particular sense. So I learned you need that discipline in an area like art. You need a teacher that's hard because of the nature of the subject matter. I learned that you need the structure, whereas in other disciplines like philosophy, you don't need that structure, right? It actually works best without it. So in the writing group, you want to look for that structure. You want to look for a teacher that's kind of trying to weed people out, that wants to put pressure on you and wants to see if you can take it. And that's kind of what to expect. You're not going to have tests. You're not going to have quizzes. You're going to have homework, writing your 2 or 3 stories throughout the semester and getting them in on time, and then taking other people's stories for a week and coming back with a comprehensive critique of that story. And all that's going to be measured, and that's how you're going to get your A or your B. If you're not going to get a B, the teacher is going to sit you down and talk you out of the class, which happened to me in a nature writing class. So that's what to expect in writers groups. We're going to transition from that to talk about literary technique, but I want you to know through the MFA process what some of these classes are going to look like.